Today on Locked On Rockies. Well, teams have figured it out. If you want to beat the Rockies, get them to 2 strikes and throw a curveball, because the Rockies, they'll swing at it every time.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 29th day of April in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. We got a lot to talk about today, and unfortunately, it's not a lot of fun stuff to talk about because the Rockies stunk it up this weekend yet again in another series in which that Astros team was struggling just as bad. That Rockies jumped out in front. The Rockies had chances, but as usual, the offense falls apart and can't stop striking out. It continues to be an absolutely infuriating experience to watch the Colorado Rockies offense. No adjustments, no discipline. If you have 2 strikes and you're a Colorado Rockies hitter, throw something in the dirt, they will swing at it. Guaranteed, bar none, they're going for it. Hack, 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 hack. That's the Rockies' philosophy. Don't care where the pitch is going, swing at it. Looking at 0-2 already, swing at it. Umpires, who cares? They're not going to give the Rockies any benefit of the doubt. Bretton Doyle touched third base, by the way. It's a mess. That series was a mess for the Colorado Rockies, and we'll talk about it, dive into it, and more all on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we get into everything today, just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. 2 teams entered the weekend with the same record. One team looked like they were in a lot better position to break their funk and get back into the swing of things. And another team looks like they have now trailed in every single game, tying a major league record back to 1910. Plain and simple. I mean, that is the state of the Colorado Rockies. And if we don't hear something from a higher up official about being even disappointed, where is my boy Dick Momford? I know he's not very chatty during the season, but we got to start hearing some stuff here. I mean, there needs to start being some pressure put on. If there was any, those Bud Black extension talks, shelve them. And there should be no coach on this team that has a guarantee past this season. None. Not a single one. The offensive approach is pitiful for the Colorado Rockies. It's not enjoyable to watch. This team is not prepared. This team is not prepared to go deep into accounts. This team does not go up to the dish feeling confident that they can work a count. This group does not go up feeling confident that they can score runs. You want to know what's one of the most frustrating parts about this series? The Rockies were 1 hit behind Houston, and before the blumbers of the 8th and the 9th inning, it was basically a tie ball game for the Rockies and the Astros in terms of hits and things as well in that first game. You want to know what the difference is? In game 1, the Rockies struck out 14 times. In game 2 for against Houston, the Rockies struck out 11 times. When you continue to strike out double digits again and 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 again, these are professionals. These are professionals that are supposed to have access to well, it's the Rockies, so we know they don't have access to as much stuff. We know the Rockies don't care as much about as analytics. Dick's got his guys he trusts. He didn't want to hear about winning from anybody else. He knew his guys. He knew. Dick Momford knew what it takes to win. That's what he told us at the beginning of the season. He said he didn't want to hear it from those outside guys. Any of those new outside ideas wasn't going to work. Dick Momford's got it figured out. I mean, this is Schmidts' team. I mean, and you can't sit and hide no longer in the shadows of it. You can like what Bill Schmidt has done. You can like that Bill Schmidt has been aggressive. You can like some of the moves, but you can't sit there and say that this core, it isn't working. And I don't know if it isn't working because of the team itself, the way it's constructed, or the way the Rockies are, but they look outmatched every time they step on the field. The Astros had the same record going into this series as the Rockies. They outscored the Rockies 20-4. I'm sorry, 20-6. 20-6. The Avalanche scored more goals in their last two games than the Rockies scored in the most hitter-friendly environment in baseball. The offense is broken. It is 110% busted. This team can't hit in the clutch. This team can't string together hits when they need to. This team can't stop striking out. And until I wish I could sit there and say, hey, they're playing the Marlins, the worst team in baseball by record. That could change. The Rockies hitting looks outmatched by the rest of pitching in baseball. Legit. Get to a 2-strike count, throw something in the dirt, the Rockies will swing at it. It's not entertaining to watch. It's not fun to watch. It's not hopeful to watch. There's nothing here that's happened this first month of the season outside of Ryan McMahon's offense that you can sit there and be pumped about. I'm pumped on Tovar too, but let's not forget that he's young. He looked outclassed in game 2. He showed that how eager. You can see it from everybody. Even Charlie Blackmon's striking out right now. Where again, we got a hitting coach that was that is more famous for getting for illegally being in the cockpit of a plane than results on the field. It just simply can't happen. Compare that to the amount of strikeouts the Rockies had in game 1. The Rockies struck out 4 batters. 4. And for Cal, yeah, the long ball was really the issue, but still, that's still 6 earned from Cal. And then in yesterday's game, they're only out hit by 1, but they lose by 6. 6. Austin Gomber, only 2 strikeouts. Go in the box scores and look at that time and time again this season. There's a reason why this team has trailed in every single game. They have not they don't have the confidence right now to just go after a team. 1910. This hasn't happened since 1910. If you're not sitting there as the organization and saying something is wrong, then your blinders have gotten even more blinding. And I fully admit of where I was, and I still think that this team, hopefully after the schedule irons out, we talked about this before, the schedule is finally ironing out at least a little bit. This is the easiest 2 series the Rockies have played in terms of competition for the season coming up here, in terms of the Marlins and the Pirates. But you have to go to Miami, where you struggle on the road, and you have to go to Pittsburgh, where it's still a road trip. And then when you go back to Coors Field, it's the Giants and the Rangers. There is no room for this. The Rockies don't stop playing high-level talent at really any point in this season. A couple of pockets here and there. So if this team wants to prove that they're legit, if this team, if Dick Monfort and company believe that this team can take down playoff caliber competition, well, the test of the first month, you failed. And I get it. There's a rebuild, there's this, there's that, there's foundation. I understand the context of where the Rockies are at this year and where they might be saying that. But again, think of how many people have long-term extensions with the Colorado Rockies. Think about who you expect to be playing for this team next season as well. It's a lot of the same names. unless the Rockies really blow it up at the trade deadline. But if you are in charge of the Rockies and you're sitting there and you say, well, let's evaluate where this team is at. You just played a month's worth of playoff teams, and you just had arguably the worst start in your franchise's history, and you've tied a streak that hasn't been met since 1910. 28 straight games trailing. Broken. Flawed. Massive issues. So the story goes, right? Are we not running on the treadmill of mediocrity to bad baseball that we've come to expect from the Rockies this year? It's time for them to show us something. It's time to see an adjustment, for the love of Pete. I just want to see someone go up and just say, I'm just going to, you know what? I'm going to take the first 2 pitches. And there've been some good at bats, some quality at bats, but you have to do it over and over again and not make striking out double digits the norm. Let's take a quick break. We'll dive into a potential call-up for the Rockies. We'll also talk about, again, the main difference is the Rockies strike out. They don't get strikeouts, and you can just see how detrimental those outs are. We'll talk about that and more coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show passable, and that includes DoorDash. DoorDash, you know DoorDash. DoorDash has got you covered this Mother's Day when you need those gifts. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for mom on DoorDash. Surprise her from wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech, gift cards, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. Does mom have a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet and any option available to you on the DoorDash app. You can get that same day delivery or schedule a week ahead for when flowers and gifts should arrive to her doorstep with DoorDash. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 on your next delivery. DoorDash, use it today. We're also brought to you by Monopoly Go. You love Monopoly. I love Monopoly, so why not take Monopoly on the road with you? It's time to talk more about Monopoly Go, and I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. There's unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton, including their own unique mini games like digging for treasure and a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent. Frenzies, there's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. So one thing, too, with the Roccos here is they have been unlucky. If you've heard on the broadcast lately, the Rockies are, I think, a top 3 team in teams getting strikes called that are balls. There have been some massive momentum shifting moments where the umpires have got it wrong. I personally think that there was clear evidence that Brenton Doyle hits the front of the bag and trips on it. I think that makes the most sense. I don't necessarily know how you look at some of those angles and not get that. But I think on the flip side, if he was ruled safe, if he was ruled fine, and if he was ruled that he did touch the bag initially, I don't think they flip it either way. That there is something there with that overwhelming offense or evidence, and it was a little bit tough. But when you freeze it, I mean, and when you really think about it, he stumbles where his foot goes. Would it have been an ankle roll, and then he misses and rolls like that and completely misses the back that way? I think it's much more, it looks like it, where he kicks the bag, which is touching the bag, and then trips and stumbles and then recovers. It's so Rockies for that to happen. It's so Rockies for that play to happen, for the Rockies to get a 2-out rally, to cut their lead down to 1, to then go on to lose big. To go on to lose and get crushed. I mean, at that point in the game, let's see here, before that instance, it was a 4-2 ball game, and I believe that was in the 5th before the 6th happened, going in there, and the Astros plating 2 more and then adding 6 more as a result of that. I can't remember if that happened a little bit later in the game. So the Rockies have been getting a little unlucky when it comes to that stuff. But when you strike out at the rate that the Rockies do, when you perform at the rate the Rockies do, the umpires aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You're not going to get those unless the pitcher is showing that you can. The Rockies are getting the close calls in the counts is when they're actually taking pitches, when they're actually building out these counts, when they're going deeper into the count instead of immediately going down 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, 1, you know. It's almost as if Rockies batters should just go up with 2 strikes, because that's how it feels. I mean, it's an immediate and it's quick too. Bam, boom, strike 1, strike 2. You're down 0-2 just like that every single time. So that's, I mean, again, there's no excuse at this point anymore. This is a month into the season. There has to be adjustments being made. And again, when we've heard the stories of the lack of analytics and data and things like that the Rockies have from past players and from what we've seen in terms of staffing, we can't believe that this team is taking every possible route to getting better. This team is not using all of their resources. This team is not accessing the 21st century of baseball. They look like a team that's far behind. They look like a team that's confused every single time they go up to the dish. And they look like a team that's outmatched when it comes to pitching. Astros pitching had more strikeouts in one game than the Rockies had in the entire series. And you can trace that back to more series this season. So I ask for the Rockies, and for the sake of the Rockies fan here, what is the adjustment? Like, what are you guys? I seriously, I would love to know. I would love to hear from Bam Bam. Probably the reason why he's not talking much right now. I wonder why. But we haven't heard from him much before. I would like to know. And again, they know they are all better ball players than I. They are all better baseball players than I. They're professionals. But why do they look so unprepared compared to other teams? Why are other teams able to be so successful against the Colorado Rockies? Is it just plain and simple? The talent levels here, talent levels, the difference in talent levels are on 2 different worlds. In the Astros case, you can point that out and say, yeah. It's for some of these other teams. But what happens if the Rockies get swept by the Marlins? What happens if the Rockies don't do well against the Pirates? What happens if the Rockies struggle against the Athletics, the White Sox, the Twins? I mean, all these other teams that aren't that good. You can sit there and the tough pill to swallow of the beginning of the season, and you can sit there and say, man, that's a bummer. But what's the line? What's the difference between the great teams and these bad teams? Can you, as a Rockies fan, are you really confident that this Rockies offense can go into Miami this week, a place where they have historically struggled, and be successful? Because I don't. Until this team plays a week's straight of winning baseball, going 4-3, I doubt them. I doubt their ability to win series. I doubt their abilities to play against elite level talent. Because when the Rockies have matched up against some of the best in the business this year, they have failed. Outside of the one game in Toronto, They have failed. Yes, they've won other games, but it's by tooth and nail. It's coming back. It's this, it's that. The Rockies look behind every single team, and they look far behind playoff teams. Far, far behind playoff teams. I mean, the Astros there, that's a team that's struggling, but that's a team that's struggling that looks like, what the heck why are we struggling? We have these pieces. We have these players. We have this talent on this roster. What's going on? The Astros are going to be able to figure it out. The Astros are going to make adjustments. The Astros saw a get-right series here against Colorado, and they took full advantage of it. The most hitter-friendly environment in baseball is Mexico City for the Mexico City series. The Rockies scored 6 runs. The Astros scored 12 in a game. That's the difference. Those are the differences here. I mean, the benchmarks are huge. It's amazing. I mean, it really is truly what we've learned this first month of the season is the Rockies are very far from a playoff contender. Very, very, very far from a playoff contender. Hey, I wanted to at least update you on this note here, something that might be happening for this series coming up here. This is from our buddy Skylar Timmons here. Or what's it, Skylar? Who's let's see. Might have been Evan. Let me go to Purple Row at least. Purple Row is reporting on this. The Rockies are considering calling up Jordan Beck as they believe that I think they're saying that it's going to be Nolan Jones heading to the IL with back stiffness. Jordan Beck heading up and might it be with the team for Tuesday's game here. But I really liked there was someone, I can't remember who said it here. If they are going to call up Beck, I think it was Evan. Let me go to Evan's Twitter here, because this is exactly the type of thing here. If you're going to call up Beck, let's see. Here's the thing. This is what Evan Lang writes here yesterday. Here's the thing. If they call up Beck, it needs to be with the intention of him starting every day. No bench riding, no learning to ride in airplanes. You can call up my Concho, and my Concho starts in left field. I agree that if you're going to have Beck come up, it does the Rockies no good for him to play nothing. It does him no good to get 1-2 pinch hit at bats. He needs to play. He's been raking in the minors. He's been showing that he's got the energy. If you're looking for the young spark plug guy, you might as well do it. What do you have to lose? Especially in this series. You're going up against Miami. You can argue, but if Jake Cave is getting starts over Jordan Beck, who's getting called up to fill in for Nolan Jones on the IL, that doesn't work with the Rockies' plan this year. There should be no situation in which Jake Cave gets consistent starts. And Jake Cave's been fine enough as a bench player, but that is his role. Jake Cave's role is the bench player. If Beck is coming up, he has to get in the game. He has to play. It doesn't make, especially this year. There's no excuse. There's no excuse this year. You're too far down in the toilet. You're too far behind. See what you have with these young guys. I don't need to see Jake Cave taking at bats against the Marlins in the beginning of April while Nolan Jones is on the IL. I don't need to see it. If he comes in later and plays in the 6th and the 7th and the 8th as a fill-in, or later in the game, that's one thing. But if Jordan Beck just gets called up and instead to go from being red hot in the minor leagues to just sitting on the bench with 2 at-bats in a week, that's terrible management. That's not how you handle bringing up a hot prospect. In reality, if you're going to do the thing, if you're only going to make room for one, you send Hunter Goodman down. And I know that he hasn't had enough time to really prove himself and everything and not get as much time as Tolia did before he gets sent down. But regardless, it does not make sense for Jake Cave to get consistent playing time if Nolan Jones is out, when you have too many people that you need to see and figure out what you have when it comes to the outfield. We know what Jake Cave is. Jake Cave at this stage of his career is a veteran bench player that can play multiple positions and that Bud Black loves. We already know Bud Black loves Jake Cave because he gets in the game all the time. But it's going to be even more disappointing if the Rockies call up one of their top prospects, one of their best hitting prospects in the minors right now, and he just sits on the bench. If he doesn't perform on the field, that's one thing. That's how it goes. but at least give us the opportunity and the chance to see him perform instead of classic Rockies. Here's a veteran guy we're going to put into the game and start over you, and we're going to call somebody up because somebody's on the IL, and you're going to pinch hit twice in the series. Got to let him play because it ain't going to do him any good to cool him off and just sit him on the bench and do nothing. Hey, quick break here, and then we look at a series that should be the Rockies' best chance to end this skid and best chance to win a series all season long. But the Rockies head to Miami, a place that has never been kind to them. We'll talk about that coming up in just a moment here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel has got you covered during this sports NATO that's going on right now because we got NBA and NHL playoffs, plus we got baseball action, everything else going on too, golf, spring football, and all sorts of stuff still going on here in the world of sports. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a bet with FanDuel. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This is a Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk. Rockies get swept in Mexico City. Rockies are now 7-21 on the season. They take on a Miami Marlins team that has one less win than them. So basically the winner of this series is going to avoid the basement, basically. Avoid the basement of being the worst team in baseball. But here's an interesting thing. According to AIscore.com here, the Marlins and the Rockies are tied 74-74 when it comes to wins apiece. But here's the deal. The home team has dominated this series. The Marlins have a 69.2% winning percentage against the Rockies at home. Rockies have so that's what I'm saying. This team has a lot of work to do this weekend. This team has got to be to succeed in an environment that they have not succeeded very much in. And I wish I could safely say I was. The Marlins might not be able to hit, but you know what they can do? Pitch. And you know what's the Rockies' kryptonite? Good pitching. Unless the Rockies' offense comes alive, I have Miami winning this series 2 out of 3. I think this offense is that sluggish, that depleted, that outmatched right now that I don't think this team is going to roll into Miami and be successful. I don't think that this team, the energy is low. Everything about the Rockies has me thinking that the Rockies are going to come out of this series being labeled as the worst team in baseball. Outside of the White Sox, the second worst team in baseball. Great. Yippee. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, though. I mean, this is the first series with the Rockies when it comes to talent-wise. It should be comparable. This is a Marlins team that has struggled mightily this year. But again, we'll see. We'll see if this team can adjust. We'll see if this team can hit good pitching. Because so far, that hasn't been the case. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes, letting me know what's on your mind, and lots more. Your support really does help the show grow, so I really do appreciate that. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB, or if you need your playoff coverage, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Avalanche, got you covered, as well as Locked On Broncos, breaking down everything NFL draft and everything Sanders is going down with Locked On Buffs. Check it all out on the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.